Ever since the sale of the Risky Business Porsche 928, prices of early cars have exploded. In the very short period of time after the sale, 3 early 928s have already sold for over $100,000. This has never happened before. Early cars have always gone at a premium, especially when you have the Passat interior, phone dials. It's got a special allure, but prices over a GTS, is it worth it? Let's find out. For many years, the general consensus was buy the newest Porsche 928 that you can afford. So the newest one would be the Porsche 928 GTS, and prices reflected this. That's no longer the case, not even close. Early Porsche 928s are selling for more than the later 928 GTSs. So this happens a lot in the Porsche world. 1980s 911 turbos regularly sell for more than new and more than the new Porsches in the showroom. It's a very different type of buyer. So since this happens a lot in the Porsche world, it's happening now in 928s, especially the early ones. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know about early Porsche 928. Are they worth the premium, sometimes costing double or triple, and if it's a good investment? 1980s Porsches regularly sell for more than new Porsches at the showroom, and this happens a lot in the used classic Porsche market. The old ones cost more than the new ones. Now, Porsche 928 prices have been going up steadily, but this dramatic shift, what actually made it happen was the sale of the Risky Business Porsche 928, which we did a video on. After the sale of that car, 3 early Porsche 928s have sold for over 100,000 in that short amount of time. Now that's double what they would have sold before the Risky Business Porsche sale. Is it worth it? It's a big yes, but with a few asterisks. There are a lot of different model early Porsche 928s. So basically, when somebody thinks early Porsche 928s, they think pre-S4, which they have the kind of shark look. This pre-S4 before the updated bumpers in 1987 truly do have a classic car look. After 1987, with the updated bumpers, the Porsche 928 looks like a modern car. It being ahead of its time means that it looks like a modern car now. It doesn't look like a classic. It looks like a modern Porsche. The early Porsche 928s do not look like modern cars. They look like classic, and that is where the appeal starts in those cars. But they're all a little bit different, and some are way better than others. And the market is not reflecting that. What do I mean? Not all early 928s are the same. Very different cars, very different engines, and very different driving experiences. Let's see why. When the Porsche 928 came out in 1978, almost every single car that came out was almost exactly the same, except for emissions regulations. But the engine output was about the same for all of them, the United States and all of Europe. There wasn't much of a difference until the S came out in Europe, not the United States, because when we first got the 928S, that was just an appearance package. Slightly upgraded this, slightly upgraded that, spoilers, not the engine. So from 78 to 79, Euro or US, they drive almost identical. In 1980, things changed. Europe got the beast motor and the US didn't. So they drive completely different and they sound completely different. Anybody who's owned an early 928, especially with exhaust, it's got a muscle car feel, which I love. The Euro, totally different. The Euro sounds smoother and well, more Euro, which got even better with the twin distributor model, which was underrated at 330. That one sounds like a So in today's market, at least here in the United States, I'm not seeing a price difference between Euro models and US model. As a matter of fact, most people, if they see a Euro model, they're more interested in knowing, does it have all the emissions equipment that it needs to have when it was first imported, especially if you live in California. But I'm seeing no price difference between the US models and the Euro models, even though they drive worlds apart, because the most important thing when purchasing any Porsche 928 is the condition of the car. You can easily spend $30,000, $40,000 to get an average restoration on a Porsche 928. So when somebody finds an early Porsche 928 that's in spectacular condition, they're not picky. They're not looking at, is it a Euro? Does it have the 300 horsepower motor? No, they're looking at the condition of the car, because if you have to start restoring a Porsche 928, it'll be a multi-year project. So the ones that you've seen that have sold need nothing. They are ready to go. And so it's worth it. And so anybody who's owned a Porsche 928 or several knows the value of a car you don't have to do anything to. Knowing that the car is ready for shows is a big factor with the sale of these cars. They are ready to go to all the Porsche events. They're not project cars, and the price reflects it. I've got some thoughts on it that are definitely a little bit different just because I've been exposed to these cars so much. About 18 months ago, I had 3 928s parked in my warehouse, a 1981 manual, a 1987 automatic, and a 1990 GT. All 3 very different cars with very different market values. Driving them back to back over and over again, one of the biggest things that stood out to me is that, damn, the automatic drives great. And I think that the price difference that you have the automatics versus the stick shifts, it's got more to do with flexing on social media. You've got to have the stick shift, which is just to post it online. As far as driving them, the GT is not double the car of an S4, not even close. It's not double the fun of an S4. The 1981 that I had, on the other hand, was a lot slower than both of them. The 1981 is an early car, and it wasn't as nice condition as the newer one. So when you first go in, sit in the cars, my overall first impression is this one is nicer, this one has a perfect dashboard, this one's perfect paint, perfect everything. In the 1981, well, my brain is already thinking, well, it needs this, it needs that, it needs this, it needs that. Okay, well, that's what I'm thinking about the car. But as far as driving them, the 1981 was the funnest by a lot. And a lot of little different things contribute to the fun factor of the early cars versus the later ones. Specifically, weight and gearing. The earlier cars are a lot lighter with their 16-valve motors. A lot lighter. And one of the reasons they're a lot lighter is not just the engine, is the brakes. The upgraded brakes that came in 1986 and a half, those Brembo brakes that are all you'll need for the track, well, those Brembo brakes also make the car feel heavier. So if you drive them back to back, the early car just feels more alive, livelier in your hands and the road. The steering, everything's a little bit more fun. Not as good, but a little bit funner. And the gearing is ultra short. Let me explain about that gearing. When the Porsche 928S in the US upgraded the motor from 4.5 to 4.7 in 1983, they also lengthened the gearing. It went from a 2.75 to a 2.27, a lot longer, and you can feel it immediately. As a matter of fact, that is the first thing that you're going to notice in the car if you drive an early manual versus a later manual. The gearing is a lot shorter in the early cars. Shorter gearing means funner, means you're revving up the car a lot more on an engine that loves to rev. That alone makes the earlier cars, specifically 1982 and under, more fun to drive than the later ones. Now I'm saying more fun, not more satisfying, not faster, not anything like that. I'm just saying a little bit funner. In the same way that my first car in high school was convertible 5.0 Fox body. It was a POS if you think about it. It wasn't an engineering masterpiece, but it was really fun. Almost the same thing here. The newer ones got more competent mechanically, and as the performance envelope started getting bigger and bigger, more and more competent, the excitement starts going down little by little at normal speeds. The 928 GT that I had started coming alive after 85 miles an hour. That's when that car starts saying to you, now we're getting started. The early cars, no way, not so much. You're getting your fun with a quick drive around the block. It's a big difference that you don't really realize until you have them parked back to back. So the appeal of an earlier car, which I get my kicks just driving around the block, go way up higher. So the car's intended use is going to reflect the price. Early Porsche 928s now are being used mainly for driving around the weekends and car shows. They're mimicking 911s of the era, except that with Porsche 928 you have crazier interiors, you take it to the show, and you get the oohs and ahs from the crowd. So if you're looking at these sales and thinking to yourself, what's going on here? This was gonna happen anyways. The Risky Business 928 was just a catalyst. You see this, you want it, and you're always gonna want it. And guess what's gonna happen in 10-20 years? You're probably gonna want it more. The sellers are not crazy, the buyers are not crazy. This is just what the market's at. And as the prices keep going up, more of these earlier cars are gonna be restored to a higher level. So more beautiful cars that don't need anything are going to be popping up in the market in the coming years. This was never the case before. 10 years ago, you couldn't find an early 928 that needed nothing. You just couldn't find it. It didn't exist. Now, going forward, I think we'll see a lot more of them. But they're going to cost. They're going to cost what they're worth. Because remember, restoring a Porsche 928 is not cheap. It wasn't a cheap car when new. It's definitely not a cheap car now. So if you want to know more about the Porsche 928, start with the video linked down below. Now you know.